Service Center. This morning we are going to be talking about service centers on campus and specifically some staff development things that we've been doing in our service center for the past 4 years of implementation and all of those fun things. We will have some question time and discussion time towards the end. And then one other quick housekeeping thing, we will have a sign-in sheet kind of roaming around. We do have a lot of resources on Dropbox, and so as our presentation goes through, you might see the little Dropbox logo, so you know what's going to be in that Dropbox for you. If you'd like access to that, just go ahead and put your name on the paper that will roam around, name and email, and we'll get that for you. So we will introduce ourselves. My name is Lindsey Gibson. I'm the Assistant Director for Facilities and Operations at Western Oregon University. I've been at Western for about 4 years now, and while my job has transitioned a bit during that time, I have supervised our residential service center through that entire time. Our campus is relatively small. We have about 1,100 students living on campus. We have one centralized service center on our campus that we supervise, and it's called the Residential Service Center. And my presenter and I have made a promise to ourselves that we are going to try to refer to it as a service center. But if we slip up and say the RSC, that's what we mean, and we apologize. Alrighty, so I'm Rachel, and I am a student staff member on our team. I'm also the Facilities and Operations Program Assistant, so kind of what that looks like, I described a little bit earlier. So I help team lead the service center. There we go, there's one. The service center. So that looks like supporting the staff, being hands when Lindsey's not around, helping with mail, helping with packages, whatever that is. And I am senior at Western, studying communication with a minor in organization leadership. And other things that I do in my position, so a little bit about it. I also advise a group of on-campus students who collect recycling and program around sustainability and other operational needs. So whether that's helping with conferences, checking rooms, going to grab some tables for equipment checkout, anything like that. And that's kind of me. Alrighty, so we thought it'd be fun for you all to see our space, kind of like a welcome to my crib type thing, see what we're working with, see what our layout looks like. So we thought it was super fun for one of our staff members to show you. So I'm going to hand it off to Harrison in just a minute, and he's going to show you what our space looks like in our service center. So.
Oh, hello there. I'm Harrison. I work at the Residential Service Center. Let's take a tour. If you look to the right here, you have a nice computer lab that students can come and do work or print stuff out. Follow me back here. You can see the mail room where students receive mail or small packages. And right to the left right here, you have a restroom that's available for anyone. And if you're feeling pretty thirsty, you can get some water right here. Also, we have the NRHH and RHA office right here. If you follow me over here, you'll find the Coordinator for Leadership and Programs office. And then back here is where I work. Oh, hello again. I'm Harrison, and I work at the Residential Service Center, as you saw earlier. So we took a tour earlier of the rest of the Residential Service Center, so let's take a look back here. Right here, we got the larger packages that will fit in the mailboxes. And if you come right over here, we got the key boxes, and just in case the student gets locked out of the residence halls, they can get a key to get back in. As well as we sell stamps that if they want to send mail to loved ones anytime they can. Also, we have parking passes if a guest comes, and they want to park on campus, they can come get a parking pass. Also, throughout the year, we have conferences that they stay in the residence halls, so they can come get keys here and get checked in for that. As well as if you want to make a delicious home-cooked meal, you can come get some keys for a kitchen throughout campus. Also, last but not least, we have Lost and Found, and that is your Residential Service Center.
Alrighty, so that is Harrison, and he's one of our desk assistants, and he works with us. One thing I think is interesting to note about that video is Lindsey and I's offices are not in this space. So this is functioning without Lindsey and I being in that building, and our offices are actually a couple buildings away, about 2-minute walk, so something to think about. Oh, this is me too. Okay, so behind our desk, we have 8 students working for us. About 10 to 15 hours a week is how much they work. And we do kind of a seniority system. So the longer you work with us, the more hours you get. And then you get some scheduling privileges with that as well. You get to schedule earlier for certain things. We use Google Calendar to schedule our hours. So they submit all of their requirements, all the things that they do to me. And I look over their calendars and I make a schedule and then submit it and put it in Google Calendar. And then they have some time to tell me, like, is it working for them? Will this work? Are they still available? Stuff. So we use Google Calendar for that. Already talked about that. We have monthly staff meetings. So those monthly staff meetings look pretty casual. We'll go into the structure of that later. But that's time for them to get to see us all as a team together. We don't have set one-on-ones with them. We are both available for one-on-ones when they need that support or when they have something that comes up they want to talk about, but we don't have set one-on-ones with them. And then I take the more supportive role, and Lindsey's more the supervisory role. So I'm kind of those extra hands when Lindsey's not around, and just trying to support the staff in any way that is. Sometimes that's asking how their day was, sometimes that's helping them bring in the packages, so it looks different day to day, but just being around and present. So before we talk about kind of some of the changes we've made over the past 4 years, I think it's important to talk about kind of where we were. So 4 years ago when I stepped on the campus, this is kind of where we were. And not to say that these things are wrong, but for me to be the best supervisor that I felt like I could be, I had some challenges with some of these things. So we had no employee handbook. We had a procedures guide and continue to have that walks through actual processes of doing the lockout, for example, but nothing that talked about could they listen to music behind the desk, what happens if they showed up late to their shift. None of that was in writing and made it really challenging for me to hold people accountable. We had no set training schedule. Students came in a few days before move-in. It was a couple hours long and it was really focused on kind of staff bonding and not necessarily about job-specific duties. So that was hard for me. Hiring process was pretty unstructured, kind of lax. Paper applications were put on the desk for about 5 days and just made me question if we were really getting the best candidate pool that we could be getting. And then there was no student staff reflection. And to me, this was really obvious. In one of my iterations of jobs at Western over the past 4 years, I was advising student leaders. And what I really noticed was my student leaders at the end of their time could really talk about the skills that they gained by being a student leader. And my student employees who worked behind the desk didn't have those same that same ability to reflect on their experience. So I saw that discrepancy and some changes to that. So we started with our hiring process and we made some changes. And I'll just say that some of this and most of this is not going to be anything groundbreaking, but my hope is to give you some nugget that may be helpful on your campus. So in our hiring process now, we form a hiring committee, and that hiring committee starts from day one. It consists of myself, my current program assistant this year being Rachel, and then a current desk staff member. And we try to rotate that staff member every 1 to 2 hiring cycles to give people that opportunity. And what I found is that it really allows the applicant to ask the current staff what it's really like to be at the desk, what challenges do you face, and they know way better than I do. So it allows them to do that. It also allows them to have a say in their new team member. But I've really noticed it provides my students a great professional development opportunity and consistently get feedback that, wow, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to tweak my resume because I've sat on the other side of that. I'm going to change how I answer that interview question. So that's been a huge thing for us. And they're involved from day one. So when we get applications, I do a grade and conduct check. But after that, they are reading every single resume. They're helping me pick who we interview, they are interviewing, and they're helping me make the final hiring decision. So they're involved in all of that. We do advertise in our halls. We give preference to students living on campus to work with us. So basically all of our promotion is in our residence halls.
We post our job online through our university's online software that we use. So we post it on there, and that's really helped increase our application numbers. And we ask for a cover letter, resume, and answers to supplemental questions. And what we found is a lot of resumes look very, very similar for our students that are applying for this. And so those answers to the questions really give students a time to shine, and we can better narrow down the applicant pool from those questions. One thing we've been playing around with more recently is redacting information. So I will go through and I will take out any contact information as well as the student's name. And I've been doing this because I have current students on my hiring committee, and sometimes they've had an interaction with a student maybe totally outside of a job-related function, but they might have some bias because they saw them at this restaurant or whatever. And so that's something that we've been playing around with. It's been kind of interesting to do that, and something I'm looking forward to continuing to do. And then lastly, when we make hiring decisions, one thing that I do is I always let our students talk first. So we will interview someone, and instead of me being like, oh my gosh, I loved them, they were so great because of this, this, and this, I always turn to my students and say, what do you think? And I think it allows our students then to have a different opinion with me instead of me saying something and then being like, well, I don't want to disagree with your supervisor, so I'm not going to say anything. But then they get to say their truth first, and I get to kind of coach them through that. Okay, why did you think that? Oh, I heard that differently, and let's talk about what that discrepancy is. So that's been a huge help in those decisions as well. Alrighty, so going through a little bit of our hiring process and things that we look for when we're hiring. So we really strive to be representative of our student population. So this past term, we had an all-female staff. We love our ladies and they're rocking the desk, but we really took that into account when we were hiring this past term mid-year, and took that into account to be representative, because you want to represent what you have and talk to people like we take into account what our staff is currently functioning like what is the trend and how do they work together, and how would adding this new personality work with the team? How would they add things to the team? What would be challenges to bring to an already functioning group dynamic? We look at start dates, so we're going to look a little bit later about our differences in training. So the way our training works mid-year versus when you start in the fall, it's more of a hit the ground running process. When you start mid-year, you don't get as much training. So we take a look at that when we're talking to someone. Do they seem like they could jump in right now with not as much training and just run with it? Or do they seem like maybe they need a little more training? So we keep that in mind. We like to incorporate a mixture of housing background experience. Colleen says that we don't want to be a place where RAs go to retire. We want to have a diverse background in people, so people that haven't worked in student affairs or haven't worked in housing. Maybe they come from student engagement, maybe they come from other places and just do programming. We like to involve everyone. And the customer service experience is important to us because we are serving customers, and our whole mission is serve your customers best. So how they interact with people, what their customer service philosophies are, is important to us. And then some things that we focus on value-wise, we really value critical thinking. So how is this person thinking about situations, thinking about what they're doing, and that goes into problem solving. How are they going to take a situation and use their resources and do what they need to do to get the situation done? Because a lot of times they're going to be working by themselves at the desk. And so that comes along with our integrity piece as well, that they're going to be working with packages, other people's packages, lots of money and stuff like that. And they're going to be by themselves a lot of the time. So how do they give us examples in their interview that lead us to say, oh, they have integrity, or they know how to solve problems on their own? Because a lot of times they're going to get different situations all the time, like we've seen. And utilizing resources, sorry, it's kind of all over the place there, but utilizing the resources. How do they look at the resources all across campus and pull those in
to help solve their problems. What do they know about campus and how can they bring that to their experience? So we don't just look for one of these things, it's kind of like how do all of those things work within? It's kind of a sure. All right, so going from hiring into training, we've done some differences in training, so we're gonna walk you through that. So we're gonna walk through our fall and then our mid-year. So as you can see, there's a big difference between the two. So with our fall training, that's about a day and a half of training where we meet and get to hang out with our whole staff and talk to them. We like to pull in guest speakers so they hear different voices. They're not just hearing Lindsey or I talk or the program assistant is all day long. So guest speakers we pulled in the past, we pulled in our director of mail services. She knows mail more than any of us, so she can talk specifically to mail and things are gonna run across and how to process that. We also pulled in our manager of technology for the office. Because he knows our software systems and he's going to be able to walk them through how to do a lockout on the computer, what is going to happen, and if you get an error, what to do, stuff like that. We also do a tour of the residence halls and how the keys work, and we find that really important because when our service center is handing out a key, we want them to know where that key goes, what that building looks like, how to walk to where they're going to go, so they can visualize in their mind, I'm not just handing out a key, it's not just a key, this is how they get back in their room. So they get to visualize and see where that hall is. And something that's important to know is we have a lot of different types of keys, we have different types of hard keys, we have buildings that have fobs, buildings that don't. So it's complex, and so we walk them to each of those buildings, walk around, have them key into rooms. This is before anyone lives there, so. Anyway, so we do a tour to help them see the lay of the land, what they're working with. We take them back into where our storage units are to show them where the equipment reservation rentals are, show them different parts of campus. We do some customer service training, and that has looked different from year to year. And I think that's part of our keeping it new and fresh for returners. So we've done different customer service training. A couple years ago, we watched a video that was surrounded around the Seattle fish market, the fish video, and their philosophy of customer service. We found that really helpful and interesting, but we wanted to keep something new for our returners, something to keep them interested to learn more. So Lindsey kind of created her own customer service training, and I think that you can do different things year to year, and you could take into account what your staff needs, like, oh, I think they're really struggling with this type of customer service or that. Yeah, so keeping it fresh, I think, is really important for your returning students that have worked at your desk or worked with you multiple years. Switching up the order of things helps for us, adding different things, talking about things in different manners, because there's always different things you can get out of training, and you never want your students to come in and say, oh, we're doing another training, I'm not going to learn anything, I already know. No, there's always more stuff you can pull out of training, so framing it in different ways is going to help them see that there is more they can pull out. We do some behind the desk scenarios. So we actually have them sit at our desk and we come up with situations. And sometimes we pull in like actors, some of our other res ed staff and other people to come up to our desk and say, I lost my key and I need to do this, and throw situations at them so that they can take that theory training and do something with it. Be like, oh, this is what I would actually do. This isn't just the procedure. And then we do expectations at our end of all of our session. We find that really important that it's at the end, because then that helps your staff has already bonded together, already talked it up, and they know the procedure. So they kind of already have in mind what they need. I think sometimes when we do expectations at the beginning, it's hard because they don't know the procedures, they don't know what they're going to do. It's hard for them to tell you what they need to expect. So something to think about. And then we actually do a meeting with our RAs, because our RAs, or CAs, whatever you have, work directly with our staff and often are going to come to our service center and say, I have this key, and our RAs just expect that our desk attendants know who they are, and not everyone knows who they are. So doing a meet and greet, sometimes that looks like a lunch, sometimes that looks like a get to know you type thing, has really helped merge the two and say that we're all working together. So that's helpful for us, and to know that when you come to the desk, it's not just like that person's gonna know exactly who you are.
So like Rachel mentioned earlier, our mid-year hiring and training is a bit more like throwing it into the deep end. So we're trying to do some things to help mitigate that. So one thing we did is we created what we call a task list, which is essentially a one-page document that lists every single situation that we do at the desk. And the very first stop in a mid-year training is a meeting with me. And I have a section on the task list that's meeting with Lindsey, and we talk about all the things that you wouldn't learn by sitting behind the desk. So we go over expectations, scheduling, if you need an accommodation to work, sick leave, etc. And then they're given that task list and asked to shadow a current staff member at the desk during the current shift. They shadow typically about 4 hours, and the whole point is for them to watch, okay, I'm a returning desk staff and I'm giving out a package, but I'm telling my new staff member how I'm doing that. And then that new staff member is marking off their task sheet until that task sheet is complete. And we know that they've completed and they've seen or been walked through everything that we do at the desk. After they complete that, they're working their first shift solo, and we have someone shadow them. So if I'm a new staff member, I'm at the desk, but I have a veteran staff member with me that I can lean over and be like, is it this button? Did I do that right? How would you have done that better? So they're not feeling so alone. And then they work their first shift and we just check in on them periodically. All right, so we do have our monthly staff meetings I talked about earlier. So this is a little bit of what our monthly staff meetings look like. So they're not super structured meetings, they're pretty relaxed. We meet in like a lounge and sit on some couches and talk to each other. So we start with a whip around question. Sometimes that's, what did you do? Or what's your favorite thing you ate over Thanksgiving break? Or it's something like that, something to get them talking to each other. And then Lindsey goes through some announcements, things that we're seeing at the desk, things that are coming up, whether that's a big conference coming in, whether that's a process that's going to change, training. And that's somewhat brief. And then we go into whiteboard time. So as you can see over here, this picture of a whiteboard, that is at our desk, behind our desk. And staff members can write on that at any time during their shift. Something comes up, something they're like, oh, this happened, and I want to talk about that at the staff meeting. They write it down, and then we kind of go through it at our staff meeting, and Lindsey reads it off, and then whoever wrote it kind of takes the floor and goes, this is what I'm seeing and what I want to talk about. So it's a discussion about what's going on, and then they get to give input, whether they liked something that happened or they didn't, or their feedback. And then we kind of open it up for questions and discussion. And student input is really important at these meetings. That is not, we don't hand out an agenda and say, this is our meeting. We want to make it more casual and more comfortable and more just like, we're talking about what's going on. So 4 years ago, if a student was working the desk and they wanted to come back the next academic year, they basically told the supervisor, like, hey, I'm coming back next year, and then they came back next year. And so we worked to kind of change that process a little bit. So now it's a multi-step process, nothing too crazy, but allows some kind of reflection piece to it. So the first step is our intent to return our application. I feel like I call it something different every year, but you get the idea. It's a one-page document. This is the first half of it. And basically they're saying, hey, I want to come back either for the full year next year or part of the year because I have an internship that's going to take me off campus or graduating earlier, whatever it is. And then they're also telling me this is about how many hours I want to work. And this is due to me before I start hiring for the next year. So I have some kind of ideas on how many week staff I need to hire for the following year. And then they're asked to just start reflecting. So tell me one thing that you feel like you accomplished or that you excelled at this year. Tell me one area of improvement you're looking at to grow for next year. And then they turn this into me. Once they do that, they get a self-evaluation. It's about a 2-page document, and it goes over, basically they ask them to rate themselves on all things, some general topics, punctuality, their general attitude towards the position, how they work with their team members, and then some specifics of how comfortable do you feel with our software program or this kind of process or whatnot. And we also give them a rubric, and so they know exactly what it means to meet expectation, to be punctual. That's a good one, for example, that sometimes I notice me and my students have a different idea of what punctuality means. And so by giving them a rubric, they know exactly what I mean by meeting, exceeding, or falling below expectation. So they fill this all out, and then they schedule a meeting with me. It's our only scheduled one-on-one of the term or of the year. And we go over those 2 documents. So they walk me through their self-evaluation, where they felt like they did, if they have examples. We go over their intent to return. What's that one thing that they want to improve on? How can I support them in that? What do they need from me or the program assistant, etc. And then based on that conversation, they're asked to return. So we have 4 returners at the desk right now, and we kind of asked them as we were putting together this presentation, just their general thoughts of their return process, why they think we do it, what they've gotten out of it, and we just thought we'd share that with you.
I think we do a returner application to kind of just, again, review everything you've done over the past year or past term or whatever that looks like for you. Just to kind of like, again, highlight what you're doing well and the areas that you are succeeding in, and then also highlight the areas you can improve in and kind of just do better in.
It just is a good kind of refresher, like my knowledge and like everything that I'm capable of here, you know. And it's also really nice to look at it and be like, no, like I can do that, you know. Like it just is, it's kind of like a confidence boost. You're like, no, these are all the things I know. These are all the things I can do. And this is all the way I can help residents. And it just, I don't know, it's kind of nice to look at it.
It's actually really helpful because if I did do those evaluations, I probably wouldn't just randomly think, oh, actually, I should probably come in like 10 minutes earlier so that I have more time to switch shifts, like little things like that you don't really notice until you take a step back and start to think about it. So it's really helpful to kind of get your gears turning about how you think you can improve personally.
I think it's really good for like the employee themselves. Like it really has helped me like connect work to school and to life and to other things that I'm doing. Because it's like, yes, we're just doing lockouts and mail and all of that, but it really helps me see that it's like, okay, it's helping with my personal or like my communication skills and working with other people and multitasking and all of that. So I like that it like helps me connect the 2.
And I'll just say we did not coach them. We just kind of asked some general questions, but it's always nice as a supervisor when you ask your students why they think you're doing something, and they tell you exactly the reasons why you're doing it. So it's kind of nice to hear.
And a quick question.
Yeah.
Sounds like the reapplication process is a really great reflection piece for your staff. Have you ever not hired somebody back, and what do you use as the I guess the evaluation process?
Sure. I have not yet had a student go through that entire process that didn't return, or that I didn't ask to return. I have had to let someone go, but we had other conversations before they got through that return process. And I think in that situation, if I was seeing enough of something where I wasn't gonna ask someone to come back, I would try to have some earlier conversations so that they weren't surprised by that, I guess. But that hasn't happened. Please let that not happen. So just wanted to kind of share some other thoughts as we kind of wrap things up, some things that we kind of didn't fall into. So some tips and tricks that I've just kind of picked up over the last 4 years. One is that employee handbook. This has been crucial in helping keep people accountable. Again, that situation where I did have to let someone go was some differences of, oh, I didn't realize that was the expectation. And in my head, I was like, it's so obvious. And so what we found is the employee handbook has really helped clarify some things. This was a project my program assistant did 2 years ago and went to other campus partners who had a similar operation. So our student union has an information desk, our health and wellness center has a customer service desk. So we grabbed their employee handbook and tweaked it to our operation, and that's been huge. We go over it at our fall training and our mid-year training, and the last page of that document is a signature page. So our students know that they're responsible for all of that information. They have to sign it and return that back to me so that it is very clear on our expectations. Rachel and I had never worked at a service center desk as a student, and so one thing that I did when I first got hired, and then now I do with all of my program assistants, is we go and we sit at the desk and watch them go through that process like a new staff member would, and that has really helped understand the procedures and the rhythm on the desk. I feel like I know a lot better on when the desk is very busy or when it's not as busy because I've sat there with them. But the thing that's made the biggest difference, good, Tina's not in here anymore. The thing that's made the biggest difference is what I call undercover boss, even though it's not really undercover. And these are the times where I myself have worked the desk without one of my students there. Doesn't happen often, I don't do it all the time, but for example, student wakes up sick, we open at 8 a.m. I don't know about your all students, but an 8 a.m. shift is pretty challenging for me to get covered last minute. Most of my students are still asleep or in class. So there have been times where I go and I open the desk because that's what is important to me. And it is eye-opening to actually be the person behind the computer to sit in that chair and go through those procedures. And I have changed procedures because of that. So a couple years ago, we had a procedure where a package came in, we would email the student, package sat on our shelf for 3 days. We'd like fill out this note and put it in their mailbox to be like, hey, we packaged. And if you would have asked me like, why do you do that? I'd be like, that's what we do. Like, that's helpful, I think. And it took me opening the desk one morning, filling out these packages, being like, why are we doing this? This is a waste of our time. It's not serving our residents. Our students check their email way more often than they check their mailbox. And that was the last day we did that. But it took me sitting in that seat to be like, this isn't working. Communication is a big one that we've tweaked and changed and whatnot over the years. And what I mean by communication is while they're at the desk, what is their communication when they need a resource, whether that's to you or to someone else. So we're a Google Suite school, so we use Google Hangouts, GChat, whatever, instant messaging is what we use. And this has been game-changing for the desk. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't want to type, it's too much, I'll just call them. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, Lindsey, I'm helping someone, can I put you on hold, or can I call you back? And so it's a lot easier if I can just type out my question, or they can type out their question in between guests that they're helping at the desk. The other thing with this is for them to know who to call when. So Google Hangouts is something that I have on my phone. It's an app that I have on my phone. So if I'm not at my desk or if it's after hours, they can still get a hold of me. That's something that I do, and my staff knows that even at 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night or on the weekends, they can reach out to me. If that's not you, that's totally fine as long as your staff then knows who they're contacting. We're a pretty small school, so none of my colleagues really know the desk like I do. And so I told my staff too, like, if you reach out to me and I don't answer, it's because I'm busy. Like, I just won't respond. So they know that they can do that. With that too, there's been some coaching around that, right? So there have been times where I'm like, oh, electronic door died. Yeah, I probably could call the professional staff on call for you, but that doesn't teach my staff anything. So there have been times where I've said, you need to call the RD on call, or this doesn't sound like an immediate need. Why don't you send me an email and we'll follow up in the morning, right? So there's some coaching that goes along with that. I don't get messages every night. I don't get messages every weekend. There are weekends where I'm like, I wonder if our desk is open because I hope everyone showed up because I haven't heard from anyone. And those are wins. But so that's one thing that's been really helpful for us is figuring out and making sure your staff knows who they're talking to about what and when. And one thing that has really helped me in that and protecting my time, even though I let staff communicate with me after hours, is making sure your staff understands your values. So, great example of this, last week we had our monthly staff meeting for February, and as many Oregonians were, we were talking about inclement weather. And I asked staff, okay, looking at the weather, we're going to talk about inclement weather. What do you all think I want to happen if the campus is closed or we have a 2-hour delay or whatever? And every single one of them were like, we got to open the desk. We know that that's your value, Lindsey, to have the desk open. So, okay, great, let's figure out how. But I don't get questions about, oh, I can't get my shift covered. Can you help me? I don't get those questions because they know that my value is if the desk is supposed to be open, the desk is open. My staff also knows that if we give out a key, they are writing down as much information as possible. They don't always know if that's going in our software or key paperwork or sticky note, but they know that we need that key information or we need that student's information. And so that saves me some of those questions of, oh my gosh, I need to know this information right now. And my goal is to always get the students to not say, this is happening, what do I do? But to say, this happened, this is what I did. Is that okay? Is there anything else you want me to do? How can I follow up? So that's been a huge thing for me. And this happens a lot in staff meetings. Like Rachel was saying, when students ask a question of me, giving a response, but then explaining the reasoning behind that at the desk, and I'm assuming this is not just me, things very rarely follow the process exactly how we think it's gonna go. And so if they understand some of those values, they understand some of those reasonings, they're not asking about every individual situation. So that's kind of where we're at, some things that we're still working on and opportunities that we're still seeing for growth. One is we've got a lot of new systems going in our desk this year. So we have a new housing management software. We've restructured how we're doing mail. Some big kind of things that we do at our operation are changes. So we've had a lot of conversations about adaptability and flexibility this year. We're working on creating some more opportunities for reflection mid-year and throughout the year. Right now, that reflection piece is coming at the end of the year. And so trying to figure out some ways where we can have that mid-year where students can immediately make some changes to their operation. With that, one miss that we're having right now is our graduating seniors or students who aren't returning and the reflection piece for them. That reflection piece is right now tied to a returner process. So those graduating seniors are leaving without necessarily the formalized opportunity to reflect on their experience. So that's one thing that's growing in my mind. With that, making sure that students are having an opportunity to tie what they're doing to their future employment, kind of like Carrie said in the video. They're probably not going to be doing a lockout during their next career, but what are they learning by doing the lockout or by doing the things at the desk that will help them, and how do they communicate that in an interview or on a resume, and helping students with that. And then the supervisor evaluation piece is one thing that we're kind of working on this year. For the first time, I asked them to provide feedback to Rachel and included that in her mid-year evaluation for her position, but also allowing them to give feedback for me so that I can better myself and change things to better serve them. And then lastly, these are some things kind of outside of staff development to be thinking about and things that just kind of service center specific. And that first one is that transition in and out of summer. It really depends on how your service center is utilized or isn't utilized in the summer, but ours really becomes our main hub for conferences. And our staff looks drastically different. We do some things the same in the summer, but some things very different. We have things that need to be moved in and out of storage. Space is utilized a little differently. So figuring out what that transition is and who's involved in that. Looking at resources over breaks, so winter break, spring break, we still have students living on campus in the residence halls, although it's a smaller number. But my staff also likes to go home for winter break or spring break, and so how do we be available to our residents on limited staff or with limited funding? We can't always afford to pay the extra in student employment to be open our normal operational hours. So how do we get creative with that? This year, actually, our our resident live-in staff helped us staff the desk for limited hours because of student employment already. So we're getting creative with that. And then lastly, just facility needs and what does your actual facility look like, feel like, and need. Our space is pretty limited, especially during textbook season when we have overflowing packages. And so getting creative with that and figuring out how do we stay organized, how do we not trip over ourselves, and what does that look like. So some other things kind of just to think about when it comes to service centers. And with that, does anyone have any questions, comments, discussion that may be on their mind?
Hi folks, thanks for this presentation. I feel like service centers is something that we don't get to talk about too much, and really just operations in general at these conferences, so I just really appreciate the opportunity. I wanted to ask, you mentioned earlier in your hiring and selection process, supplemental questions, which I agree are very valuable. You'd mentioned that the resumes are usually a little monotone or very similar to each other. What about the cover letter? Because in my institution, I've currently experienced a lot of different opinions around a cover letter and whether or not it's useful in the selection process.
So we currently use a cover letter, although I go back and forth if I want to or not, because it usually doesn't provide a lot in their application. I'm getting most of what I am looking for, what is helping me make that decision, or the students are helping me make that decision through those questions and resumes. So right now we're asking for it, but I'm on the fence and leaning towards taking it off of ours. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's kind of where we're at. It's very rarely added something to an application that has made me and our committee fall one way or the other.
So quiet in here. So I'm Josh from Eastern Washington. And so my question for you is, when it comes to your evaluation facility, so like the first half of it, and it's kind of like a two-part question. One, is electronic? So that's my first question. Two, what are you using as your metric system or measurement of how well everyone's doing compared to others? Like, are you using like improvement, needs improvement, unsatisfactory, satisfactory? So what does your grading scale look like?
So yes, it is electronic. It's just a Microsoft Word document, so students go in and just type it. So yes, and then I don't evaluate formally the students. They are just doing a self-evaluation. And then they're given that rubric to do that. And part of the reason I don't do that formal evaluation is it's challenging for me because of the amount of time I spend with each student, because my desk isn't there. So I'm getting some information by when I visit them, what I'm hearing from their coworkers, what I'm hearing from my program assistant, etc. But right now, my process is not necessarily a formalized evaluation of them. They're doing that as self-evaluation. That makes sense?
Yeah, so when you get back to that conversation, that's when you go.
Yep.
Expectation.
Yep. Anything else? I hear we have 2 minutes. Awesome. Well, Kristen. Yes.
You mentioned the res ed staff taking over to some extent. You also mentioned they don't get a lot of training. They don't know necessarily everything on the desk. So even when they do call, they have to call. Do you go through any kind of like assistance with your pro staffs? That way, when something does happen, right when it's about to close, that they can step in.
Currently, no, we don't have any formalized training with our res ed. Typically when I'm, about the desk, typically when I'm instructing one of our desk staff to call the professional staff on call, it's about a facilities thing that my staff is just hearing about because all of a sudden their key stopped working because their electronic lock died, right? And so we're just, instead of that being reported to the RA, it got reported to our desk. And so those are the instructions. My staff isn't calling the resident director on call about desk-related things. Those are coming to me. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. It was super fun to talk about operations and these kinds of things, so appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Rachel, especially for giving us the opportunity to have this conversation today. We wanted to provide you the certificates of appreciation and recognition for your presentation, as well as let you know that a donation has been made in your name to the sponsor organization, Girls on the Run.
Thank you so much.
If folks want to fill out the evaluation,